Thank you so much, Jason. And welcome, everyone. Good morning. Welcome to the Unitarian Congregation of Westchester and our online worship service. My name is Kathy Beatty, and I'm a lay leader in this congregation. Our minister, Reverend Dan Schatz, is on leave this summer. Our service today is Wanting What We Do Not Need, and the sermon will be provided by our own Reverend Nancy Dean. She's a UCWC congregation member, and I'm really looking forward to it. I especially want to welcome any visitors to our online service this morning. We hope we're going to have a chance to get to know you. You can say hello in the comments. You can go to ucwc.org and you can send us an email, welcome@ucwc.org, if you'd like more information about our congregation, and we will be in touch with you directly. We also hope that you'll join us for our online social hour. The link and the password are in connections. We'll put them in the comments for this service, and they'll also be on the screen at the end of this service. Unitarian Universalism holds that great good comes from wide diversity. So, whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your heritage, and from wherever your beliefs spring, we are pleased that you are here. Let us walk a while together. Announcements today. Defenders of Democracy will meet tonight at 7 o'clock via Zoom. For the meeting link, see ucwc.org/Zoom under Sunday meetings. And as a reminder, please check connections and our online calendar for other announcements and information on how to access our various online events. Our chalice lighting today is Abundance, and this is by Reverend Dawn Skjei Cooley. We light our chalice this morning, grateful for the love that we experience in this beloved community. May the flame light the way for all who seek such abundance. Oh, I put it on the other side. Oh my goodness. Try that again. Successful. And now, please join us in singing hymn number 16, "'Tis a Gift to be Simple," performed by Miriam Davidson.
'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in the place just right, 'twill be in the valley of love and delight. When true simplicity is gained, to bow and to bend we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. 'Tis a gift to be simple, 'tis a gift to be free, 'tis a gift to come down where we ought to be. And when we find ourselves in a place just right, 'Twill be in the valley of love and delight, when true simplicity is gained. To bow and to bend, we shan't be ashamed. To turn will be our delight, till by turning we come round right. Turning we come round right.
Thank you, Miriam. And now please join me in the Unison Affirmation. We gather, aspiring to be a thriving, caring, and welcoming community that supports each person's spiritual journey, embraces diversity, challenges us to live responsibly, and is a catalyst for a just and compassionate world. We're very grateful for all the gifts of our members that have been keeping us going. And while we're online, you can donate on the web, by text, by app, or mail a check to UCWC. And if you can add a little bit to what you've pledged monthly, we're very grateful. Thank you for all these gifts and your generosity in every form. We will now receive the morning offering. Thank you for all these gifts and your generosity in every form. And thank you, Jason, for performing Little Flower. Our reading today is by Chris Jimerson, titled, Who Am I Not to Be Blessed? In moonlit shadows at the edge of night-darkened oak trees, I see it. Across sunny pathways, in the buzzing of insects, amongst the flowering forest greenery, I hear it. From the touch of ones loved, the embraces of those gone before me, I feel it. In the poems I love dearly, the songs that speak to my heart, the sculpture that captures my imagination, the discoveries still to be made, I sense it. It is in the fire of distant suns, the cool drip of waters, the slight chill in the breeze, the laughter of children, no matter what their age, old and young, grown and still small. It is the breath of life, the stardust of souls, the magic of remembrance. Who am I not to surrender to it in gratitude? Who am I not to be blessed? And now we'll hear some special music from the Spirit Singers. What really matters.
What really matters to your heart? What really matters to your heart? For the things of the world define you not. What really matters to your heart? What really matters in your soul? What really matters in your soul? For the things of the world define you not. What really matters in your soul? How do you treat the ones you love? How do you treat the ones you love? Oh, that's what matters at the end of the day. How do you treat the ones you love? How do you treat your precious heart? How do you treat your precious heart? For that's what matters at the end of the day. How do you treat your precious heart? How do you give of what you have? How do you give of what you have? Oh, that's what matters at the end of the day. How do you give of what you have? How do you feel your gratitude? How do you feel your gratitude? For that's what matters at the end of the day. How do you feel your gratitude? How do you lift each other up? How do you lift each other up? For that's what matters at the end of the day. How do you lift each other up? What really matters to your heart? What really matters to your heart? For the things of the world define you not. What really matters to your heart?
I absolutely love hearing Mary Ellen singing the lead on that song. She did such a beautiful job. And now it's time to hear from Reverend Nancy Dean. She will be sharing with us wanting what we do not need.
Good morning. I begin with a thought from Mark Twain. A human being has the natural desire to have more of a good thing than he needs. It's so good to be with you again after what was truly an annus horribilis in 2020, and now in 2021, a year of incredible uncertainty. But one side effect of such troubled times is that we tend to be more inclined to stop and consider life generally, or as the New Testament writer puts it, consider the lilies of the field. We think about the things that matter most, what we would not want to lose, and all that we would willingly give up if it meant a better, more connected life with the people we love most. Fear has a way of focusing the mind. Also, having more time on our hands inclines us to think about doing some of those things on that long to-do list. I realized that my closets and cabinets were overcrowded and needed a desperate cleaning out. And it made me appreciate my mother's and grandmother's practice of spring cleaning. I had never felt the need to do that annual spring clean myself, which is how I wound up with overstuffed closets, drawers that sometimes don't shut well, and overstuffed cabinets. So how did I come by so much stuff? I had to ask myself. And stuff seems the best word to speak of all those bits and pieces that were apt to accumulate year to year. I found things I forgot I had, or worse, duplicates, and a lot of stuff I do not need, maybe never needed. I simply have too much stuff to remember all the stuff that I have. And my friends confirm they have this problem too. I'm not a hoarder, just an ordinary consumer who's very fortunate compared to much of humanity. I live in a prosperous nation. I've had good work all of my life, as has my husband, and we're living the often remarked American dream, especially as we both came from working class families. So while I was going through all this stuff, I came across a box of old sermon materials, and in there, some notes about the Diderot effect, which seemed to address my acquisition of stuff and give it more meaning and certainly a lot to think about. So today I want to focus on those things we do not need and how it is we become owners of things like 2 waffle irons or a basement full of objects we can't even recall. In the last months, as with much of the nation, I could see a need to declutter my life, especially as I'm a senior citizen, and I don't want my daughter to be stuck with having to get rid of all of my lifelong accumulation, which my husband and I have had to do with our parents in the last 2 years. I often think of a scene from a movie written by Joan Didion. I can't remember the name of it, but there's a middle-aged woman who has been recently divorced, and she needs to sell her house and move into something smaller. And she says to her daughter, in effect, I spent 20 years acquiring a house full of stuff I now want to get rid of. Well, isn't that true for lots of us, especially as we get older? American culture, and like much of the world, is based in capitalism, selling goods, buying goods. Our economy is judged by how all of this is going on at any given time. We have a nonstop apparatus encouraging us to buy. Sales, advertisements are constantly in front of us on TV, in the newspapers, magazines, especially in social media. Most of what constitutes the mail in our actual mailboxes these days is sale-related, ads, catalogs, circulars. Ads are at us all the time. Capitalism, like democracy, has its good and bad points. And one of the bad points of capitalism is the push to never-ending purchasing. For some of us, it's manageable, but for some of us, it can become an addiction that can lead to real financial problems. Some years ago, when an aunt of mine died, it was discovered that she had closets full of purchases never even opened. She was of limited means, yet somehow nearly all of her money went to buying stuff she didn't even use, so certainly didn't need. I remember well when a member of my congregation said to me that now that she'd retired from her law practice, she'd never have to buy any more clothes, that she had more than enough clothing to last her the rest of her life. And at the time, I was amazed by the truth of her statement and realized I probably too could last out my days without buying another single item of clothing. But I knew I wouldn't. I knew instinctively that I would want more. I would want more clothes and other things. Still, she helped me to realize the privilege of being able to do that. I clearly do not need much at this point in my life. Indeed, I can safely say I need nothing of the stuff variety. I may need health care or car repair or house maintenance, but that's all in the need realm, necessities. So how is it we come to want so much we do not need? I don't think there's any single very good answer beyond our capitalistic system, human vanity, and perhaps human evolution. But I believe it does one good to recognize these urges and find ways, if not to stop them, at least modify them. One way to understand our tendency to want things we do not need comes from the famous French philosopher Diderot. Diderot was a well-known 18th century figure of the Enlightenment, a renowned art critic and writer who, along with the mathematician Jean d'Alembert, created the 17-volume encyclopedia, which was based on rationalism and intended to bring all the disciplines together. It was a great undertaking for the time. But for all Diderot's fame, his intelligence, his close association with the greatest minds of the age, Diderot was poor. He lived nearly all of his life in poverty. But in 1765, his condition changed thanks to the Russian monarch, Catherine the Great. She had heard of his distress and made an arrangement to buy his entire library for a considerable sum, of course, leaving the library in his use for his lifetime. Further, she appointed him librarian of this big collection on a healthy salary. Now, Diderot, so to speak, was in the green. He had more than enough. And to celebrate, he bought himself something special, a splendid robe of scarlet red silk. And while his luck had certainly changed, it wasn't going to be the only thing to change. Diderot's robe was truly wonderful. There's a painting in Paris that shows him in this remarkable garment. But when he put it on and was standing in his modest abode, he realized he was rather too elegant for his shabby home and the simple objects he possessed. And he wrote that there was, quote, no more coordination, no more unity, no more beauty between his silk robe and all the other items. This drove him to update his home, to buy better quality things so he didn't feel out of place in his fancy robe. So he got a beautiful new rug from Syria to replace the old one. Next came furniture, including a lovely ornate mirror to go over the fireplace mantle, and much in the same vein. Aware of the effect that buying one thing can lead to buying more things, Diderot himself termed this the Diderot effect in an essay he wrote on this subject. The essence being that obtaining a new possession often creates a spiral of consumption, which leads you to acquire more new things. As a result, we end up buying things that our previous selves never needed to feel happy or fulfilled. No doubt, most of us occasionally have become victim to the Diderot effect. For instance, you take up a new hobby and you soon need more adjunct items, then better quality items, and the relation of one thing to another becomes almost inexhaustible. I discovered this when I took up watercolor painting more seriously a couple of years ago, and that certainly got leverage in 2020. I needed more brushes, then better brushes, different papers and better papers, and different varieties of paints and better paints and aids to painting. So it grows like the plant in the movie Little Shop of Horrors. Feed me, Seymour, says the new activity. There is in the human animal an urge to look for more, to want for something more, likely born out of our survival needs of around 3 million years of evolution, but gone awry in this age. There is now the concept of hedonic adaptation, think hedonism, hedonic adaptation, or the hedonic treadmill, that states we quickly become adapted to certain states of happiness or well-being, and therefore keep searching for something more. For instance, you get a new car, and for a while, weeks, maybe months, the excitement of the new car fills you with joy. But eventually, it becomes just the car, like all the other cars before, in terms of emotional impact. We think that objects will give us pleasure for an indefinite period, but that's rarely the case. For instance, why does a guitarist like Nile Rodgers, who plays mainly on his original guitar, own dozens, if not hundreds of guitars? Why did Elizabeth Taylor have hundreds of incredible jewels? Well, perhaps investment might be part of such purchases, but just as likely, in time, the thrill is gone, and yet another item brings it back. Life has a natural tendency, says one writer, to become filled with more. We rarely are looking to downgrade, to simplify, to eliminate, or to reduce. Our natural inclination is always to accumulate, to add, to upgrade, to build upon. In the words of sociology professor Juliet Shore, quote, "The pressure to upgrade our stock of stuff is relentlessly unidirectional, always ascending." I think we jokingly encompass this with the saying, nature abhors a vacuum, so we fill up the available space. That leads us to consider how we might moderate, if not stop, the Diderot effect. If life is going to be an endless accumulating of more things, how do we find ways to at least organize or catalog, or if possible, eliminate the tide of stuff so that we can focus on those things that actually do add to our lives in meaningful ways? Then we have the possibility to go further and focus on the things that matter most, especially the people who matter most, and the good that we can do that matters more, and so forth. One exercise is to look around and think about what you would grab and save if your house was on fire. In Bruce Hood's book, Possessed, he states in effect that the human species is shaped and controlled by our desire to own things, from land and resources that are related to human survival to the trivial stuff with which we populate our homes. We are driven to acquire. Of all the animals, only humans own things, though not all humans have had the same understanding of owning. Writer Stephen Poole says, "There's no shortage of analysis and critique of consumerism, from Karl Marx on commodity fetishism and Thorstein Veblen on conspicuous consumption, to James Walton's Stuffication and Frank Trentman's Empire of Things." It's been a well-discussed topic. The developmental psychologist Bruce Hood looks at how the psychology of ownership has shaped our species and continues to control us today. He concludes with the political argument that's becoming an ever more familiar one, that in an age of climate change, we need to get off the hedonic treadmill of shopping-led overproduction, or suffer the consequences. My feeling is that there's little incentive for nations or industries to do that until there's no other option. That is what we should fear for the present and especially for the future. Religions in their teachings have generally taken the path of simplicity. Jesus lived communally, sharing all things with his disciples. We're taught that giving is better than receiving, although religions in their administration have often been guilty of the worst of conspicuous consumption. Buddhism has had its missteps too. The teachings of the Buddha, like that of Jesus, was just the opposite. The Buddha taught us in his enlightenment that all suffering comes from desire, from wanting things or people or states of being. The philosopher Robert Rowland Smith states, "The Western obsession and consumerism makes us think that wanting is the exquisite precursor to having. But according to this Buddhist philosophy, this Buddhist corrective, he calls it, wanting just makes us suffer. By turning our minds toward what we might acquire, wanting prevents us from living in the present and thus separates us from ourselves. Nirvana, the Buddhist word for enlightenment, means extinguishing the flames of desire." So how do we get from always wanting to feeling like what we have is enough? How do we moderate our impulse to ever greater acquisition? Well, gratitude, meditation, and prayer are good places to start, in my opinion. Dan Gilbert, in his 2006 seminal book on Stumbling on Happiness, pointed out that years of research he and his assistants did on understanding how money affects happiness found that where need is high, that is, food shortage, lack of housing, safe housing, reliable transportation, health insurance, money indeed can buy happiness. But after about $50,000 of annual income, and that's for 2006, the effect diminished sharply. Enough money for security indeed will make a person happier, but more money usually does not. I often hear people say, when I win the lottery, I'll do XYZ. Yet a fascinating study done back in the late 90s at the University of Chicago of people who had won huge jackpots, lotteries, and sweepstakes, the overwhelming majority were usually very little better off 10 years later than before their great wins. The upshot of the study was that if you can't manage a smaller amount of money, you likely won't manage a huge amount of money either. That also brings along with it the carrion crowd of people trying to get it from you. So yet again, we want things we may not need, nor appreciate all the baggage that may come with them. I was amused to read many years ago that lots of celebrities and other people who own very large, valuable pieces of jewelry often get replicas made with fake stones so that they can wear them without fear if they're stolen. It sort of seems to miss the point of having jewels. So such objects may own us just as much as we own them. How can we both enjoy what we have, even enjoy getting some new things occasionally, and also not be owned by the persistent press of the economy to keep buying more stuff? Of course, it's not always about stuff, but can be about abstract things like grades. I remember well a college student when I first started teaching who was so upset she got a 98 on her midterm essay. It's an A, I reminded her, but she wanted 100. Anything less was not what she wanted. For me, this is a classic example of wanting what you do not need. Or how about wanting people who do not want you? That's just never going to work. Our Unitarian Universalist philosophy largely rests in the ethical principle of the Golden Rule, treating others as we wish to be treated, respect for all the peoples of the earth and the earth itself, those ideas that are bound up in our 7 principles. So if we do indeed care about the peoples of the earth, giving in to consumerism that is damaging huge swaths of the earth can't be good. Now, that doesn't imply that we should follow Jesus's precept to sell all we have and follow his path. But we can look around at how we live from the inside and make decisions that are better for us and for the world. And while, yes, it's usually difficult to make dramatic change, it doesn't mean we can't start with the many small, meaningful ones easily within our grasp. For example, if we buy something new, say books, give some away. And we can certainly be more careful about food wastage, which I was just reading about recently, which is astronomical in this country. Between 30 and 40% of our food is wasted, according to the USDA, which came to an astonishing 80 billion pounds of food in 2020. All the while, water is becoming a rare commodity, especially in the Western states where drought is ravaging farming regions. Just stopping to consider if what we think we want is worth the price in both the immediate scope and the larger scope. That can be a good place to start. We can stop buying things we know to be especially harmful. That's being focused on what is, and we can do that without much sacrifice. How do we find some control of the Diderot effect and stop wanting what we do not need? That answer will depend on many factors, and each of us has different levels of wants and needs based on family size, work, location, and so forth. So that's largely a personal assessment. But one writer, actually a number of writers, pointed out that the way that we can address this is to reduce our exposure to that pressure to buy. Nearly every habit is initiated by a trigger or cue, often ads. One of the quickest ways to reduce the power of the Diderot effect is to avoid the habit triggers that cause it in the first place. For instance, unsubscribe from certain kinds of commercial email, stop the catalogs, block your favorite shopping websites, avoid ads in social media, buy items that fit into your current system already. In other words, maximize what you already have. Again, buy one, give one. Each time you make a new purchase, give an old item away. The idea is to prevent your number of items from growing. Always be curating your life to include only the things that bring you joy and happiness. Go a month without buying something new at all. The more we restrict ourselves, the more resourceful we can become. I've heard of many great ways, like PTAs in schools often have clothing and sports equipment sales, so you can pass on usually very gently used items to other families and get them others for yourself, and use recycling websites and more. Learning to just consider our buying habits with these thoughts in mind will more likely make us think twice about wasteful purchases or wasteful practices. Imposing limits on our behaviors can be tremendously freeing, and I would say spiritually cleansing. We can enjoy and appreciate the things that we've accumulated with thought and effort. So the hope is that the things we buy will truly improve our lives. And above all, to know that the things are just things. By far the most important are the people we love and the health we might enjoy. Without health or love, the rest is just stuff that can never bring the same level of joy and contentment. So while we as a species may be in some genetic survival way inclined toward acquisition, it need not rule our lives. The goal is to be in charge of our lives, not some nameless machinery of consumerism. Gratitude can do so much toward helping us live more meaningful lives, learning to value the people in our lives, value what we already have, learning to see how to maximize our relationship with capitalism and all the institutions of our lives. But clearly, gratitude is the most effective spiritual principle to help us want what we need and not waste our time and money on wanting what we do not need. The attitude of gratitude is indeed a boon to a happier life. So Diderot concluded in his essay on the Diderot effect, "Let my example teach you a lesson. Poverty has its freedoms and opulence has its obstacles." May we, kind friends, understand his wisdom and attempt to incorporate it into our own lives. So be it, and blessed be.
Thank you so much, Reverend. That was absolutely amazing. As we move into the time of caring and sharing in our congregation, please join us now in singing Meditation on Breathing.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
Good morning, my name is Christy Judge, and I'm a member of the Pastoral Care Team and the contact for the month of August. There is one card of sharing today. It's a card of joy. It's for one whose mother is home after a 2-week stay in the hospital. She's happy to be home and recuperating from a debilitating stint and many medical interventions. And as always, a candle is lit for those joys and concerns not expressed. Thank you.
We sing again.
When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love. When I breathe in, I'll breathe in peace. When I breathe out, I'll breathe out love.
I now invite you to join in a moment of quiet reflection and meditation. And so we honor the complexity of each of our experiences. We honor the truth in each of our hearts. May we be at peace. Amen. And now, please join us in singing hymn number 347, Gather the Spirit, performed by Abby.
Gather the Spirit, harvest the power. Our separate fires will kindle one flame. Witness the mystery of this hour. Our trials in this light appear all the same. Gather in peace, gather in thanks, gather in sympathy now and then. Gather in hope, compassion and strength. Gather to celebrate once again. Gather the spirit of heart and mind. Seeds for the sowing are laid in store. Nurtured in love and conscience refined, with body and spirit united once more. Gather in peace,
I leave you with these closing words from one-time Unitarian Henry David Thoreau. Simplify your life. Don't waste the years struggling for things that are unimportant. Don't burden yourself with possessions. Keep your needs and wants simple and enjoy what you have. Don't destroy your peace of mind by looking back, worrying about the past. Live in the present. Simplify.
Thank you, Reverend Nancy. Please join us for our Zoom social hour following Jason's performance of the postlude, Peace of the Woods.